Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mike Langford, a producer, engineer, mixer based out of Toronto, Canada. Here on Let's Mix Live, I live stream some Pro Tools mix sessions, full mix sessions, start to finish, warts and all the process we would do with some of these sessions as far as tuning and timing and just prepping, getting things sounding the best we can, hopefully sounding great. New song this week. We finished up last week with Bosnian Rainbows. This week we are starting with the Saturn Syndicate, and the song's called Never Leave the Night Alone. Where I get these tracks from, these multi-tracks, there's a site called Cambridge Music Technology. Fantastic resource, has multi-track sessions up there used for educational purposes and educational resource. So that's where I get these from. I've gone through a lot of the songs on there. I've shortlisted quite a few. And when I first heard this one, it was added recently. When I heard this one, it was instantly on my yes pile. It was just a matter of when we could get to it. Coming from last week where we had kind of some synth keyboard bass going on, I thought, you know what? Going from kind of alternative art rock into retro pop, I'm in. Also, I've been a big fan of, there's only one season of it, unfortunately, but there's a show it's a cartoon called Moonbeam City, and I love it. I think my wife loves it too, but I definitely love it. If you're a fan of Archer, it's pretty good that way. So when I heard this song, it reminded me of it, so I wanted to dig in on this one. Also, the tracking with some of these kind of retro songs with the synths and the drums and stuff. One of the things about these multi-tracks is you get to kind of dig around with some of the sounds that are there, because some of the synth sounds and patches and whatnot, I'm just like, was really interested in seeing what was actually there. So without further ado, just gonna start digging in here. Just gonna flip over into Pro Tools here. Just want to thank everybody that may have been waiting. I try to do these streams Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Thursdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Had to run a couple errands, had an appointment this morning. So I didn't know when. So I didn't want to put this up and say, yeah, we're going to be here at noon and then be rushing around. So we're good for 1 p.m. today. So it's pretty close. It's like a musician's 12. So all I've done, just to get a couple of disclaimers out of the way, all I've done so far is import all of the tracks that are available in the multi-track for this song from Cambridge Music Technology website. And I brought in the preview as well. So we'll have a listen to that. I need to get a tempo for this. And then I brought in my 1K test tones. So the disclaimer, if you're listening using headphones or your own studio speakers or your line array PA system in your basement, you know who you are. Just be mindful with your levels, and be mindful that when I'm EQing around and sweeping around frequencies, keep your levels somewhat conservative. We'll say that. I don't want any problems to happen, and I don't want any damage to be done. So that is your warning, fair warning. So quick check here, our 1K test tone. Beautiful. I just make sure I can check, because I have this all going through a mixer with the microphone and whatnot. So I can get rid of these two tracks. So I'm just going to right click on those, hide and make inactive. First thing I'm going to do, I always like to start the day saving this. We're into mix prep, and mix prep 1, because there may be several different steps here. So a couple things I want to do. So that's our preview right here. So I'm going to bring this up. Other thing I want to do is I'm going to go to new track. I'm going to go to stereo. I'm going to go to master fader. So this is our main output that we're listening to, so we can kind of hear what's happening. So I'm going to go ahead and solo this preview here. I'm going to make some notes when we're listening through. I kind of listen through to the preview what we're kind of getting into. The band or artist should send you a reference track or a rough mix or something, or even a board mix or something, so you can get an idea what they were thinking. And then I like to make a couple notes off of that if there's anything that's jumping out, or if anything that, especially when we're in this stage of the mix, if anything that I feel like we need to prep, we need to tune, time, put band-aids on, we can already kind of get there. So let's just have a listen through start to finish. Oh yeah, so this is Never Leave the Night Alone by Saturn Syndicate.
I'm doing fine, I'm coming right back once I can burn my throne. Walk a mile, walk till you get to the ice. Follow the curve, hope the walk is steep, that's what I need. I confessed, maybe I'm overdressed. Thinking slows me down. In a place I thought I would know my way around. It's fine, knowing me, all that life can be. But I lose my head if I leave with empty hands. You said I would carry less, but the heaviness wasn't in my head. I never leave the night alone. It's always such a silent tone. Left the hive when I was told how to fly. Freedom can be tricky when you haven't got the sea. True enough, when the world calls your bluff, all the things you do find their way back to you, and there's nothing you can do. It's time I need all that life can be. But I lose my head if I leave with empty hands. You said I would carry less, but the heaviness was in my
Okay, that is a journey. That's an adventure for the ears. My notes. It may seem like, again, hit the space bar. It may seem like I have a lot of notes here, on the analog notes. But for the most part, it's just kind of observations as the song's going in real time, how I feel about it. Vocal is great to me. We could throw it into Melodyne just to see what it looks like, but I have a feeling it's probably in pretty good shape. There wasn't a lot of notes that I felt were sharp, flat going on in there. Let's have a quick look here. There's not a lot of vocals here, just looking at how this is laid out. I just see lead vox, background vox, and then a double on it. So there's a couple things we can do to try to widen that vocal, or just maybe put a little bit of sauce on it to do something with it. But the vocal itself, I thought was great. I probably will not today, but probably next time. So Monday, when we're having a listen through, I'll probably throw Melodyne on it just to load it in, just to see what it does. I want to see if they kind of tuned it before, because it sounds great. Those electro drums, I could use more low end. I know I'm listening on headphones. I'm not listening on speakers, and even my NS10s, they're not going to give me that much low end, but I like seeing the woofer actually, like the actual speaker, like moving a little bit. So I'm curious when we get out of the headphones, what it's going to do. The kick drum, because this is probably not live drums. I'm not going to assume, but probably not live drums. It looks pretty not live drums. If we were to use, I'm curious about what that little stuff is in there. If we were to use trigger or something to add something else to this, that kick drum, are awesome looking waveforms there. It'd be easy enough to just drop that on and not need to re-trigger anything, because we already kind of have trigger points for this. Same with the snares as well. You're seeing 3 tracks of kicks. You're seeing 4 tracks of snare. That's very normal for not say electronic drums, but just drums in general. We're using samples. Before using programs and plugins like Trigger, we would need to like make a big group of all the samples we're going to drop in, and then manually go and drop all that stuff in. But a lot of that, well, that's already done here for the most part. So yeah, 4 snares, 3 hi-hats, the claps. I love the claps that were in there, and just a bit of the panning that was on them. Also in the second verse, I'm just going to hop in here for a second. Just want to go to the second verse. There's a reverb on that little gap that's there. Hey, Katie, how's it going? So if you listen to the drums, the reverb's kind of drier, and then on that one shot after the vocal, there's the reverb there.
Left the hive when I was told how to fly.
So things like that I kind of listen for, because if the band or the engineer, if they liked that and it's not on the tracking, then we should add that stuff back in, because those little details, I think, they're a little bit of ear candy, but also just let people know that you're listening. And there's definitely some panning going on with the claps, or even if they had delays on the claps moving around. So that was kind of cool. There's a massive gap after that first verse, after the first chorus, after here. This is probably not lined up because this is the preview. So there's kind of the tag that's there. Two, three, four, second verse. Or start here. We don't need to go to that second chorus or second chord there. Again, I'm of the thought, ask forgiveness, not permission for some of this stuff. So maybe we'll see where we get to at the beginning of next session, and I might do a little bit of work to the arrangement, because again, educational resource, so there's things that we can kind of do and chop things around if we're curious. So that would be a thing as well. Yeah, I think that, like, I don't have too many notes. Oh, but then there's this part too.
And there's nothing you can do.
Second chorus. That's a massive drop, and the whole time, because I forgot about this, the whole time I'm waiting for that kick to come back in, and when it finally does. But to me, I just felt like that gap was really long, so maybe there's a way that we can keep some interest going there and not lose the low end that much, or maybe make that into a build, because I didn't feel like there was enough build there. Again, I like a lot of things about the song. This is all personal preference, and again, we have some freedom to mess around with it because of what these sessions are put online for. Katie says, good, how about you? I'm doing good. Katie says, this song gives me 80s vibe. Retro pop, definitely 80s vibes. One of the things I thought was funny is like synthwave. I do listen to, like, I'll put synthwave on, instrumentals in the background working, and right now I'm doing accounting, doing taxes stuff. But the idea where, like, synthwave wasn't really a genre, and it really wasn't the 80s, but like it's very familiar with a lot of us from a certain era. And it's just funny how like it didn't exist, but it makes us feel like it existed. I don't know how to explain that. I'm probably butchering that, but it's interesting with just how this stuff makes us feel, and it's modern, but it makes it feel retro. So, all right, where are we at? We have our preview. I'm going to make that inactive. We don't need to look at that. Oh, last thing too, the fade. My very last note, the fade. This song fades out. Like a fade out, fade out. Oh, that's just complete chaos. So knowing this fades out, I should keep that into consideration, or take that into consideration, because if we just fade on our master or main output, it's going to affect how everything downstream, like all our compression and like just our mix bus stuff, our saturation, it's going to change it because we're not hitting that mix bus as hard anymore, even when we put a limiter on it. So one of the things we can keep in mind is instead of running everything to our main output, we could run everything to a main output bus. And that way that bus is still going to be going strong. And then we can do the fade on the master that has no plugins on it, no compression, no anything. So if we don't do the fade, it's just going to stay loud the whole time. If we do the fade, we're going to do that on the main output here. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense to some people. Excuse me. And I'll explain that as we're going, but I'm thinking that's what the plan's going to be. I generally don't usually work that way. I usually do the fade after, or usually I'll do my fade at the downbeat, after the downbeat of the last note. So my compression and saturation don't really do anything at that point anyways, if there's a final hit, or kind of a final shot or something like that. Or you can do it in mastering as well. You can just export your 2 mix and say you want the fade to start here and then end there. It's another way of doing it. So I'll probably do the method where we kind of route everything to a main aux or a main bus, and then we can do our fade out on the master after. But that being said, I haven't actually listened to the tracking yet, so I'm not really sure. Because we maybe do that fade sooner, because we have that guitar solo, and after the ripping guitar solo, I feel like we can probably just start fading. Because I don't think there's anything left to be said after that guitar solo. I think it says the rest of anything that people need, you know, possibly emotionally, spiritually, or physically. So I'm going to make this preview track, I'm going to make that inactive. I'm going to leave it up though, because I'm going to move stuff around. Again, I usually like to start my song and whatever around like bar 9 or bar 11. We need a tempo, or we need to check the tempo. So what we'll do here is we'll just solo our kick track here. And go back to the beginning. I'm going to put tab transient on. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3. So that's 2 bars there. I'm going to bring up identify beat. And identify beat. So we're going to make that, let's just make that bar 11, and we'll make that other one +2. We'll make that bar 13 because it's 2 bars. That says 117.9959. I think we can agree that that's going to be 118. The tempo is 118. So go back to the beginning, go over here, and we'll say 118. And as we're seeing, it's not lining up on the grid. That's okay. What we're going to do now is I'm going to make a group here. So we've selected the first kick drum there all the way down. There's 44 tracks here too. That was another thing I wanted to, when I saw how many tracks that were here, just how to get a handle on this, because this is where separating your instruments into groups or families or collections, this is where it's going to help quite a bit. So I'm going to make a group here. I'm going to call this all tracking. Just Command G. And I try to not use any templated stuff and try to build some of the stuff from scratch here. So now we have all of this as one giant group, all of our tracking here. So what I'm going to do is to make your waveforms larger, it's Command Option and then close bracket and open bracket. So you do that. So what we're going to do is just go over. So we can just tab to transient again to the beginning of this kick drum. or whatever the beginning is. That bass actually starts first. I'm going to go to the kick drum. I feel like the kick drum should kind of rule here. I'm going to hit B to break all of that. I'm going to double click the stuff in the beginning here. There's quite a few bars of stuff in the beginning, so I might actually start this on like bar 21 or something like that. We'll just see. I'm going to drag all of this over in grid mode. And you'll see at the top there where it is, because there's like 9 bars in the beginning. So let's maybe just bring it over. Nice even. Yeah, bar 31 looks good. Making sure everything's getting pulled over. That's starting at about 1 minute. So we have some space there, and we'll just see how much. Bar 31, and then I'm going to go back to use my trimmer tool and put it in slip mode, and then we can just pull all of this stuff back that we chopped off at the beginning there. So there's a little bit of a gap there. That's fine. We can live with that. In true fashion of myself, I'm just going to look at that. So we can probably 14 bars. We can bring that back 14 bars. So maybe let's bring that back to bar. Bring it back to bar 16. And we'll see what that looks like. I'm going to put it in shuffle mode, so we can just hit delete and that'll bring everything back. This is all the prep stuff. That looks good. There, we got a little bit of gap at the beginning for any samples that we need. And there's that space there for this intro, for the synths and stuff like that. And I'm just going to scroll through a little bit just to make sure that it looks good. Those kicks look good. There's a little faint line there we can see. Just scrolling through. That all looks good. Yep, that all looks good. Okay, that looks good. Okay, move stuff over a little bit. I'm going to line up the preview just so we have that as well. There was like no real intro. It kind of just started. So maybe it just starts over here. That's kind of where our kick drum is. We can kind of see a little bit of an onion skin effect there. So I think it starts about there. And yeah, it looks pretty close. All right, so the moment of truth, we'll just hit play on this and we'll see what happens. This could be loud, just 1 second. So you're hearing a little bit of phasing. Daniel's here, how's it going, Daniel? So that tiny bit of phasing, that's telling me that it's pretty lined up. So that sounds pretty good, pretty lined up. So I can just make this inactive. I'll let this kind of live up there. Now, we have a lot of tracks to go through. This is all the prep stuff that is not always the most fun stuff to work on. This is, and I half joke about it, this is where I have Walking Dead or lately X-Files. X-Files is getting a lot of business when I'm working on some of this stuff. So I'm going to highlight all of these tracks, all the main tracks here. And now that we've moved things over, I'm going to duplicate it. So we have a new track on each of these a new playlist in each of these tracks. The reason I'm doing this because I want to start renaming them. We start renaming them. If I ever need to go back to something, especially if something has a weird, funny, or odd name, like if something's called like Warbly Synth and it doesn't really fit, and I want to call it Synth 1, I can just look through my playlist. If the band or artist is like, hey, can you turn up the Warbly Synth? And I don't have it named that anymore, then I wouldn't be able to know what they're talking about. So I can just go back and check that. Often people love giving weird names to stuff because they think no one else is going to see it again. So audio 5, bass track, looking at you. Kick 1, and again, I usually just say .c, means that it's the comp, it's the final one. If we do any more work to it, then I use T for tuning and timing. I use Z for any noise, like noise reparative stuff. Never remember what to call that. Snare 1. This is really well labeled though. We're just cleaning this up. Normally with snare too, I would say, or snare as well, I would just say S and R, but this is all fine. This is gonna fit. I think you have like 12 characters to work with, so it fits all nicely on the mix window. Loving those mono claps because you can move those around quite a bit. The toms, I'm curious to look at those as well because there was definitely some movement on those toms as well. So there's 44 tracks on this session. There's lots of, like, not to say duplicates, but there's lots of layering to some of the sounds. And you could stem those, you could combine some of those, especially if you're bass synth, if you have 4 different synths that are playing something, you could stem that down to one stereo track and it might make your life a little bit easier. But, oh, there's a DI for that guitar. That could be a thing. That could be a thing. It's a lot of, what is all this? Oh, that's another guitar there. So maybe there's all DIs for all these guitars. That's going to add tracking too for each guitar. If there's a DI, then we can mess with that. Patterson's here. How's it going, Patterson? It says, hey, Langford, busting out the sham. Oh, maybe. When is St. Patrick's Day? Unless it's like today. But I really wouldn't know. Also, I was at Walmart this morning and they didn't have all the stuff out. They're very much Easter right now. That's how I kind of gauge where we are on the calendar. Walmart. As soon as you walk in, where I am on the left, they let you know what holiday season's right around the corner. Almost done. Almost done. All right, we're almost at 44. And that was it. Okay, that was it. So we renamed all those tracks, and again on our mix window, we can kind of see what's going on. Even when we get to these electric guitars over here, I might further rename those to make those names shorter. Those are little things that bug me, like those synths. Synth 1, like that looks great. Lead Vox, that looks great. Backing Vox, but I sometimes would say like back, or I shouldn't do right now. I would usually call it Vox Lead 1, Vox BG 1. It just fits nicer. It's just nicer is the way that I want to describe it. So there's a lot of guitar tracks here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's a lot. Plus the DIs. There's a lot there. I'll probably rename that stuff later, but for now, I think we can live with that. Next thing I want to do, we need to break this into families or groups. I think that's the next thing I'd be doing. So let's just Shift Command N, make some new tracks here, make these stereo. If you hold Command and you use the directional arrows, you can mess around with some of the parameters here. So let's go to the aux input and we have drums, we have synth bass, we have synths, we have the guitar, and we have vocals. So I think we need at least five groups of auxes here. So let's call this drums. Let's call this bass. Let's call this synths. And we'll call this guitar. And we'll call this Vox. So now we have, I don't color code everything. I leave the actual channel color codes just at default. So audio tracks are blue, auxes are green, our main output, master output's red, any virtual instruments are orange. but I just use them kind of as dividers so I can see what's going on. And then I use my auxes. I don't move the fader anywhere. That was one question some students had last couple weeks. I don't move the faders on my auxes for my subgroups. I just leave those alone, and I use them as metering. So if we're hitting it too hard or there's too much signal coming through, we can see it really clearly. If I need to bring the level down, I would much rather put trim or just bring down. If there's a bunch of different plugins we can use to just bring the level down a little bit, but I leave those at 0 until maybe the very end. If the client's like, hey, can we just move this up a little bit or move this down a little bit, then I might make them move there, because a little move on your aux for any of your subgroups is going to have a pretty big impact when you're moving stuff around. So all right, so vocals. Those are 3 vocal tracks. We'll just put those into that group there. Synths. We'll take those ones and we'll move those ones down to that side. Electric piano. Electric piano. 1 second. I'm gonna have a little listen to that. Okay, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, because I don't know my synth sounds that well. But if someone is watching this and knows that, is that the Yamaha DX7? Because there was like a really popular synth that's like, that was the sound. And I may be wrong, but I feel like it might be the Yamaha DX7. And if I am wrong, I will totally be wrong. Daniel says, what if you want to bump all your guitars on the chorus, for instance, bump all your individual tracks instead? If I wanted to bump my guitars in the chorus, it depends. I would probably just separate it to other tracks so I have more control over it. But often, like for a lot of rock stuff, the chorus guitars are just different guitars altogether. So I would just have those separated. That's just how I generally work. I just make new tracks for it and kind of still let them go out the aux that way. But that's a good point, because you could highlight that one spot and just bump it up. That being said, I generally don't do a whole lot of automation that way. I'll just make new tracks and just move them that way. There's lots of different ways. We have these lots of different ways to approach those things. We have those electric pianos. I'm gonna make another aux for those. I'm gonna just call it piano, because I feel like that's different than the synth. So I'm gonna bring that down. But that's we had an audio track here because we're clowning around on this. But that's a really good thing to keep in mind. It's downstream if you're thinking about stuff like that. Always take those things into consideration of your workflow. What's going to make life easier for you. All right, guitars. Where's our guitars here? I'm like looking underneath it. There it is. And there's a lot of guitars in there, so I'm curious once you start messing around with that. And this could be all of our drums. Yeah, and we'll just drag this down. There's like a special effects thing, as I see SFX in there, so I'm curious what that is. I don't want to jump the gun on it, but one of the things about a lot of these virtual instruments and kind of already pre-processed sounds is sometimes I don't need to do as much filtering, high and low pass filtering, because a lot of it's done. Like a lot of samples and stuff, they're already kind of processed and EQ'd, and a lot of work. What is this? What is this SFX over here? I'm just going to solo this. Oh, a little bit of a sweep there. Where are we going to put that? Let's put that down here with the drums. I think I'm going to live with the drums down. Oh yeah, because there's the reverse cymbal and there's all that kind of stuff down there. That can live down there. So we have everything separated into our groups. Again, not bringing in any template stuff. I'm trying to build this up from scratch. Presets are fair game though. So next order of business, we have our drums here. I'm going to start assigning those to subgroups. I don't name my buses. I just kind of know my numbers that I usually use. So bus 1 and 2 is for my drums. Bus 5 and 6 is my bass. And also solo safe on your auxes as well, so that when you're soloing anything in there, you can still hear it over here. Input 5 and 6, solo safe. Our synths. Now, I generally don't have a standard bus for my synths, so I'm thinking 17 and 18 feels pretty good for those. So we'll put those in 17 and 18, and then solo safe. Our electric piano. Let's make that 1920. That sounds pretty good. And solo safe. Our guitars, my guitars are usually 3 and 4. And then solo safe. And then our vocals are 7 and 8. Now, if you're curious why I do this the way that I do this, bus 1 and 2, drums. Usually the songs I'm working on have drums. 3 and 4, guitars, because usually if I'm tracking guitars, that's the next thing I'm tracking. I don't track my bass after drums. I track my guitars because there's a lot of funny, fussy things with guitars. 5 and 6, that's when we're into bass. 7 and 8, that's when we're into vocals. And then everything downstream, that's what changes. You know, if there's keyboards, if there's a piano, if there's organ, all that kind of stuff, that can all be downstream. That stuff's fine. But I leave 9 and 10. 9 is my slap delay or short delay. 10 is my long delay. 11 is my main reverb. 12 is my usually reverb throw or reverb or delay throw. So those 4 buses are already taken up. I run my those 4 buses are already taken up, and I run my buses for my effects in mono. That way I don't need to have 9 and 10 for one delay, 11 and 12 for one delay. I can just use 9, 10, 11, and 12 for 4 different things. And I put stereo effects in those. I will do that again later. But also leaving open 23 and 24, because I feel like our main aux output's going to need to head down one of those. And then that gets put into our main output so we can do that fade at the end. So let's go ahead and already do that. Let's make one more. Pro Tools is going to spin for a second. Let's go ahead and make one more aux here. And we'll call this main bus. There we go. See if that fits. Look at that. Okay, so we'll make the input on this one 23, 24. I'm going to go to our Vox master, our guitar master, piano master, our synth master, our bass master, our drums master. So all of those. Now, if the world makes sense, which it sort of doesn't right now, shift and option. So shift is going to select just what I've selected. Option is going to make all of those do my bidding. I should be able to go to bus 23, 24 as the output. And it's just going to switch those ones. So now all of those are being bussed out 23, 24. Now this comes out 23, 24. Or sorry, into 23, 24, and comes out output 1 and 2, and that will come out over here. So what we'll be doing is our normal mix chain, like our main bus, master bus chain, we can put that here. And then when we do our fade, we can do that on the master over here. So our compression, our saturation will not be affected by this fade out, because the music was like the band was very much still playing by the time they were doing that fade out. And if we start fading, we're going to lose all the spice, all the sauce that might be happening on that main mix bus. So that is the theory, at least. Oh, what's this 27 still hiding? That's gone. Let's start muting. Actually, let's start making some groups here. So we'll call this all Vox. Call this, and we're going to mute that. And we'll call this all guitars. You can do this as you work when you decide that you need groups, but I already feel like we're going to need some of these groups. So call this all piano. And we'll call this all synths. And we'll mute that. So I'm going to do kind of a faders up mix in a second. All synths. All bass. Sorry, my fault. And this is all drums. And we'll include this swell down here. Actually, let's just go ahead and We'll just call it that so we know what that is. And all drums. So this is all sitting down in our groups folder down here. I don't know if it's folder, but it's kind of our groups lineup down there. I have lots of different words for that. So we can go ahead and just mute this. So now nothing should be coming through. Everything should be muted. Story checks out. So now what I want to do is just kind of a faders up mix. I'm going to actually, I know I just said faders up, and I'm actually going to pull all these faders down. And we'll just kind of, this is where it would be fun to have a console. Because if we had a console, then we could actually just like quickly push things up and just kind of see how things are sitting. But I normally wouldn't just pull all the faders up like that, but I was curious what it actually sounded like. Okay, there's some movement on the toms. Okay, so what I want to do is actually, I'm just going to try to find a section that has a lot of stuff happening with our drums, like kind of everything. I think right here, there's a lot of business happening right here. I'm going to put it in grid mode because also, you know, when you have the choice between something making musical sense, you should go for it. So that's 24 bars there. That should loop. Because there might be a second going through. So anytime I see some, you know, the green faders bouncing around or the meters bouncing around, then I can start moving stuff. So they're pretty low levels as well, but we'll be fine. You could clip gain all that stuff up, but I'm not going to worry about it. I like that one. So we have 44 tracks to listen through. Like that. Okay, I buy that. I'm going to call this kicks. We could carve that out a little bit. We'll get there. Okay, let's listen to some of our snares here. That's a nice snare. We're going to lean on that one probably, 3. Oh, I spoke too soon. We'll be leaning on 4. I feel like 4's got a lot of the business. So let's make a group for this as well. We could make a subgroup for our kicks, but I don't get that involved with that. If we made a subgroup for our kicks, then we could EQ stuff, but it's not bugging me a lot. And again, a lot of these like sampled virtual instruments, they're pretty together as it is. So let's gonna mute all that. These hi-hats, there's a lot of hi-hat business. Let's name those. Combine that, these claps here. And I'm just watching my meter over here. I try to keep it around, keep my peaks around minus 10 dBFS or minus 6. So we have a bit of headroom to work with. I'm gonna EQ that that ride cymbal, but that's a later thing. There's some toms in here. I'm just gonna go down here for a second. Love it. You could probably widen that. Same with the claps too. We might split those toms into, instead of it being a stereo track, might split it into 2 mono tracks, and then we have more control over actually panning and doing some just some movement with it. Let's have a listen over here. That's a really meaty sounding cymbal there. We could probably add some other cymbals. With just more brightness, we'll see what we can do. What we can do to actually carve those out a little bit, but what I'm going to do here, actually, use the tools that are available. There's 24 bars there. I'm going to put a marker in here, but I'm just going to call this a selection. And I think this is C1. Normally I would go through and put markers in, put actual markers in for the song structure. But I'm fine right now. I just want to kind of hear what we're working with. I like it. I like that. As much as I love rock music and metal and children's music, the low end isn't as good as it is with a lot of synths and virtual instruments. There's just something about the low end from them. It's awesome. We can do some pretty cool stuff with bass guitars, but not the same as with some of these synths. Feeling that. So there's a bass over here as well. Just want to hear what's going on with this one. This one's leaning. I don't know why it's leaning towards the right side there. We'll figure that out later. And there's one more bass down here. Oh, there's kind of a pad over here. For the breakdown, that really long breakdown over there. Okay, let's go back into... I'm a big Mystery Science Theater fan as well. A little bit of trivia. So like a lot of the 80s stuff for me, I like it. So. I'm just checking the chat for a second here. Just making sure I'm seeing. Okay. Because it's inverted because of how I see it on OBS, which is compiling all of the video and everything, and how it shows up on the Restream chat window. It's upside down, so just make sure I wasn't missing anything. All right, so let's listen to this. I feel like that's behind. Yeah, that feels like that's behind for me, so I could ruin it. We have it nudge right now. It's gonna turn down the dance party. We have it in nudge right now at 100 samples. That feels better to me. I don't dance, but if I did, I think that would feel better to me. So it's gonna listen to the next section here. There's one a little bit over there. Oh, everyone's going now, or more's going. I love that. That reminds me of Moonbeam City. Check it out if you haven't. What is this? Another pad. I don't usually use the comment section too often, but because there's so many synths and stuff, we can put a couple notes down there. And what is this down here? Another pad. Pads and stabs. What is this? More pads. If you're curious how I kind of set some of my levels, I set my peaks off my kick drums. There's a bit of a drop down here. And then my snare drum, it's like I always want my snare drum to be loudest. Even if there's vocals, I usually want my snare drum to be just a little bit louder, and I can always kind of mix the taste after that. But that's, when I'm setting some of these levels, that's what I'm kind of listening for. There's one more sneaky synth over here. Also another pad. I like these textures. I think they're pretty fun to work with. Okay. So let's just go back here for a second. All right, so I'm feeling that. Where are we off to next? And there's a lot of tracks to go through here. Our pianos, so they're happening here too. So I'll just click that so life makes sense. Let's have a listen. I feel like I'm about to learn something about life when I hear that texture. Or about to like go to commercial. Because we just learned something about life. What is this one? Oh, little shots here. Okay, little accents. Okay. All right. Daniel says probably the envelope of the synth that makes it sound. Well, yeah, I would agree it's the envelope of the synth, but I'm going to just move that. We can do something with this. Do something with this. Because those little shots here, it's happening again soon. I think it's here. Yeah, we can add, instead of like putting a throw on something for delays or reverbs, we can just add it onto that track. That's another way of using your energy efficiently. Sometimes you can just make a new track and dump the part down that you want to put a throw on instead of having to automate it. Just make a new track, put that little part on there, and then you don't need to do a bunch of automation. This snare is ridiculous. There's a lot of things that warms my heart. There's a lot of things going on with that snare drum. Also, again, being able to look through some of these multi-tracks, if you're curious about how some of these songs get some of the sounds and textures and sonics that they do, it's nice being able to kind of weed through it a little bit. I don't know what that was, but that's me weeding through the sounds in the sonic jungle right now. Also, I don't want to assume too much, but the way that the kick and the snare are, once we add some compression to things, we can probably make this this bump pretty hard. So we are onto our electric guitars here, and there's a whole bunch. So let's scroll up and see where they are. So open there we go. Those are all our guitars. So let's just see what's happening here. Okay. There's a bit of noise on that. A little bit of buzz. We can clean that up because there's a little bit at the end. So is Autotune on that? Oh, it's like it's like a whammy or something on that. As of right now, I don't need that DI. Going on to the next one. That's the double, I think. Now, I have a correlation meter in front of me, so I can see that there's a bit of phasing going, not phasing, but there's a little bit of width going on. But I don't know if we need that track to be stereo, because this looks like that's the double. So we can call this, we can just call this guitar 1. And we can call this one underneath it, we can just call this guitar 1, 2. Because they're both kind of the same thing, I think. I don't think we need the DI on this one either, so I'm going to get rid of that. I know it's really easy to think, oh, we might use it, but just commit to some of these things. Oh, lots of noise at the beginning of that one. All that stuff, as long as we have that little bit of noise, we can usually use one of our denoisers. I use our Isotope RX to fix those things. As long as you have a little bit to sample from, you can clean it up pretty easily. And yeah, we'll just get rid of that DI. So far, it's looking like we don't need any of these DIs. Where are we on to now here? We'll just call this, we'll just call that guitar 2. And we're over here now. I think this is where the solo happens. Whoa. Let's bring this up. Oh, wow. I feel like we're about to either watch some wrestling. RIP Scott Hall. Either we're going to watch some wrestling or some monster trucks. Or people are wrestling in a ring and there's monster trucks going around the arena too. Probably really unhealthy to be in the ring at that point, but a little bit of distortion on that DI. Clipping a little bit. Might clip gain to bring that one up a little bit. Let's hear what's over here. Okay, I feel like that has less effects on it. I'm going to commit here. I'm going to get rid of both of those DIs. I don't think we need them. I think clip gain them up. Whoa, clip gain them up a little bit. I'm just going to check this last little bit over here. I'll rename them in a minute. What is this? Oh, we're bringing it home now. And just to keep this train rolling, I'm going to get rid of that DI as well. So we're going to call this guitar 3. And we're going to call this guitar 3, 2. And we'll just call this guitar 4. I think that's the solo. So we'll just call that the guitar 4 solo. So we got rid of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks of guitars there. We have 6 tracks of guitars left here. I'm going to bring all of these down. I am going to... Daniel says that guitar tone has a perm and is wearing shoulder pads. Yes, yes it is. It's confident. It's confident in its attire at all hours of the night. I'm going to bring up, just using clip gain, I'm going to bring up the level a little bit on these. So I'm just going to look down here. Maybe 3 dB is probably good. Same down here. That one looks pretty good. Now over here, we probably can bring these up quite a bit. So let's highlight that section. I love it. I love it because we can't do this with bands these days. If you're like, hey, we're gonna put chorus on this, and and just go for it. And delay. The band would say no. Your heart would say yes, but the band would say no. Okay, so we brought those levels up a little bit. It's just going to be a little bit easier when we're putting, if we're using compression or anything like that, it's just going to make more sense. So. Okay, that all makes sense over here. Okay, so we're already kind of over in guitar land right now. I'm going to duplicate all of these, and I'm just going to call them .cz, because I feel like they could all use a little bit of noise fixedness. I don't know how to word that. There's noise on, they need denoising, so let's solo the first one here. We have no EQ on this, and I think it, like in the headphones, it already sounds like pretty good. I'm just gonna crank up these waveforms, how large they are. And I'm going to turn this up. I'm just going to bring all these up. Oh, if you're for suspending the groups, if you're wondering, Shift Command G, that's how I'm able to turn my groups off. I do that all the time without thinking. I need to put, there's a plugin you can get to display on the screen when you're hitting hotkeys soon. Okay, there is delay on this, but we can probably sample that. So I'm just going to put it right on the track here. Oh, it's going to love this. Usually it wants to be on mono, but spectral denoise. Usually it wants to be mono. So we'll see how it does in stereo. So we're going to hit learn. And this is going to take a sample of the noise. And then I'm just going to drop it in a little bit before. Bring noise reduction down. I don't know all the math or voodoo or craziness of how this all works. I think it's just taking these frequencies and flipping the phase on just those, and then we're kind of doing the math against the original sound and then the sampled sound. My thing with denoising is go until it's not distracting. You don't need to get rid of all of it. If you can, fantastic, if you've got a really good clean sample, but whenever, like I hear it right there. So we can get rid of quite a bit of it. That's pretty aggressive though. So we'll just go for it. So we have this on here. So the quick and easy way we can do this is just, we can just commit this track. So Shift Option C. We'll just take this one and we'll just dump it down underneath it. See if this works the way that it should. Usually don't do stereo tracks, but and it does. So this is that's what we did, because it's just bouncing this down. I'm going to take this off of tab to transient, and I'll just cut, paste, and we can delete that track. It's saying, hey, there's audio on that track. Yeah, we just moved it. I'm going to bring this down to the next track, because sometimes you can just reuse this this setting. So I got rid of quite a bit. We can fade the rest of it out. Another way we can do this, just to show, so we have our plugin up here, is we can go to presets. We can go to copy settings. We can go up to audio suite. We can go to noise reduction. If you have this is not stock stuff. This is Isotope RX kind of noise, audio, reparative, restorative stuff. And then we can, on the audio suite version, we can say paste settings and then hit this little button here so that this stays on top. We can highlight the section that we want to process, which is this part in here. And then we can just hit render. And that's going to apply this to that audio region there. And that's another way we can do this. We can blindly just listen to this one too. We'll bring this down. We're not blindly listening to this anymore. So there's a little bit of a different buzz off the top here, but we have this little section. So we can sample that. So that's getting rid of a lot. This is like insane how much I'm adding. Or reducing, sorry. Just want to hear this part. I think that sounds okay, so I'm going to go here, copy settings, paste the settings, and we'll just render that. I would have paused Walking Dead and X-Files at this point to listen through this stuff. But this is all stuff that I would do the night before. And we're trying to go from stereo to a mono track. So I'm just going to make a new instance here of our spectral denoise. Let's listen to the end. That one sounds fine. I'll still leave it .cz just so that it's kind of uniform for everything. What is this? That one sounds fine too. And then we're on to our solos. I can grab the one from the stereo track up there. And I'll just get rid of that. Doesn't need to be there anymore. And I'm going to go listen to our solo. Love it. That one sounds fine too. So we can get rid of that. So we did a little bit of denoising on those guitars. And I think that's all sounding fine and looking good. That's the order we should be working in with audio. It should sound fine and look good, but again, we with our eyes. Let's listen to our vocals here. Actually, let's not. Let's just have a little bit of a... Bring those guitars down. Just want to get our... Because I still have to need to figure out a balance between what you're hearing and what I'm hearing. Love it. So our guitars are over here. We'll just kind of bring those up a little bit. A little bit of delay on that. That's in time. So there's a few things we can clean up. I feel like we can like start fading out here. We don't need to go all the way to the end. That's just me. And maybe just keep those drums just going, because it kind of drops off, and I feel like we could I have a lot of feelings towards those things. So sounds okay. Let's have a listen to these vocals here. So it's our lead vocal. Really curious, 'cause I thought the vocal sounded great in the track.
And put up a fight. Carry a thread, or I might get lost and not get back. Leaving a note for everyone back at home. I'm doing fine, I'm coming right back once I can burn my throne.
Serious line.
Walk a mile, walk till you get to the eyes.
It might not be tuned.
Follow the curve, hope the walk is steep, that's what I need.
I don't know. I don't hear the normal tuning on it.
I confessed, maybe I'm overdressed. Thinking slows me down. In a place I thought I would know my way around. It's fine by me, all that life can be. But I lose my head if I leave with empty
I'm listening for like some for sure stuff.
hands. You said I would carry less, but the heavy mess wasn't
That was maybe.
in my head.
But usually with tuning, like you can hear it on the vibrato, you can hear where it was pulled. But like lightly dusted with Melodyne maybe, but I'm curious to pop that into Melodyne probably next on Monday. But it's funny. It's funny though, Daniel's saying, damn, that's tuned. It's funny because like we're so used to hearing the quality of tuned vocals where part of me thinks we can't believe it's like, I can't believe it's not butter. I can't believe it's not tuned. But also with how auto-tune has sounded when we have it in auto mode, not using it in graphical mode. Some of those qualities that are there, that's brassiness. It's like I can hear compression on it. I can hear EQ on it. I can hear there's kind of an airiness to it, but I'm curious. Daniel's saying I hear it in the vibrato in some notes. It's like they killed the pitch drift 100% in melody. That's the thing. I don't necessarily hear that. Some people sound like that down the cable. But there's a couple words where I did hear, but if you put it into Melodyne, you'll be able to see, because you'll see those audio blobs will be right where they should be. But I don't know. I think the vocal sounds great.
In my head, where I can put up a fight.
And we got these backgrounds here.
Maybe I'm overdressed. Thinking slows me down. I confessed, maybe I'm
Bring these up a little bit.
I would carry.
You can definitely bring these up.
I confessed, maybe
Bring it up 6.
I'm overdressed. Thinking slows me down.
Yeah, okay. And I feel like those are tuned. Probably Melodyne, if anything. But I think it sounds great. I wish more vocals had this quality. Because it's nice when you listen to something, you're like, oh, there's not a lot of work that needs to do. I'm a firm believer. Vocals, if you have vocals in your song, it is 51% of your track. It is 51% of your grade. So, tuning timing, that's normal for pretty much everybody. But when it comes to the quality of the performance and the vibe and all that kind of stuff, there's only so much you can do. You can't EQ a smile on somebody. You can't EQ conviction on vocals. But yeah, no, that's when I heard this song, when I heard the preview, it was like, okay, there's a lot of synth and, drum stuff I think would be fun to work with, but the quality of the vocal was good. And that was one of the things across the board. Even the last, the Bosnian Rainbows tune, it's a live song, live recording, and a little bit of Melodyne, just dusting over a couple spots. And I get how some people are like, oh, it kills the emotion, this and that. No, it's hair and makeup. that's coming from me, is hair makeup for your production. So just a little bit can go a long way with how people are going to be hearing it again and again and again. So, all right, where we're at right here. I have an hour 15. Okay, we've actually done quite a bit so far. It might not seem like it, but it is like it to me. So the next thing I want to do here, and this is just personal preference, we have all this kind of space where nothing's happening on these tracks. So what I like to do, just going to go up here. I'm going to bring out old friend strip silence here. I just like to get rid of some of the stuff before and after, so there's no real number I'm looking for. I kind of just pull this over. And that looks pretty good. So we're just kind of trimming off some of the beginning and the ending and stuff like that. And we'll just go ahead. And what I'm going to do is, actually, one of the things I want to do right here, because it's bugging me, I hit Option A, and that puts everything into view with all my tracks, and it bugs me how the track is like at the very end over here. So what I like to do is just throw whatever marker over here. We'll just call that question marks, and this kind of creates a little bit of a buffer so we have space on either side, because what I want to do right now is just highlight everything like that. Because we're using strip silence, it's going to hold Option there, because we're going to strip silence. So for every track that we're going through, we can just hit strip. That gets rid of some of the extra stuff that's there. Strip, strip. Actually, those, because they're basically the same, I can do both those at the same time. All three of those, do all three of those at the same time. Those guitars. Yep, just those first two guitars, because they're pretty much the same. This is personal preference. It bugs me seeing all that extra waveform that's there. And I'll clean this up a little bit more after, but for where we are right now. And again, with all these kicks and samples and stuff, like, it's good to kind of be able to see what's happening a little bit easier. Why they stopped snare 4, I don't know. Again, I'm sorry if I sound heated right now, but that snare number 4 should be going the entire time. Snare number 4 should really get first dibs at the dinner table. It is fantastic. So, got that stuff all kind of cleaned up there. And again, normally we go through, normally go through and just closerly edit some of those. But because there's this, like, a lot of it's just samples. Okay, there's a hi-hat that's a little bit shorter there. But I'm going to go through and listen to the vocals and just do my fade-ins, fade-outs on those ones.
In my head, where I can put up a fight, carry a thread, or I might get lost.
Also listening for any
and
clicks,
not get
pops,
back.
any production stuff like that. There's a gap there, so we can probably tidy that up. Will we hear this in the track? I don't know. Sometimes we
Leaving
do.
a note for every.
Okay, I hear it's tuning on the 4.
Leaving a note for everyone back at home. Back at home. Back at home.
There's a click there.
Back at home. Back at home. Back at.
So there's a little click there. So that might be that. So I'm going to try this.
Back at home.
Try it lazy way first.
Back at home. Back at home.
Yep, that's gone.
Back at home. I'm doing fine. I'm coming right back once I can burn my throne. Walk a mile, walk till you get to the eyes. Follow the curve.
Probably a
hope
click
the
there.
Walk is steep, that's what
Nope.
I need. I confess.
Those are the doubles down there. I can just do
Maybe
that.
I'm overdressed. Thinking slows me down. In a place I thought I would know my way around. It's fine.
Okay, so we hit this part
It's
where the chorus comes in. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this track. Not that we've done anything to it right now. It's just me, I don't want to say I'm being energy efficient right now because we already have our buses and stuff on it. Yeah, we'll just make a duplicate here. So we're going to call this, because I already have a feeling that this might be a thing. So I'm going to call this chorus lead. And we'll get back here in a second.
It's fine by me, all that life can be, but
something there.
But I
we can get rid of that. We might, because again, vocals could be loud.
But I lose.
Close.
But I lose my head if I leave with empty hands.
There's a click in there. Not sure I can get it, but I'm gonna go up to noise reduction, declick. I don't know if anyone else is hearing this. I don't know if we hear it in the track, but I can hear it right now. What I'll do too, because we're getting some of these things out, I'll go duplicate and then CZ, because we are doing some noise repair. We're fixing things. And it's doing the thing where it's adding distortion to it. We'll try a 4. Still there. Try one of my presets. Still there. Let's just go for it. Okay, the closest one so far has been 5. We'll try 4. So close. So close. We'll just bring that down. That's the worst of both worlds. I hear the distortion and the click. You can buy that. Well, hear how that sounds in the track. A little bit of distortion once we put some sauce on it versus that click. Because there's been some songs I've worked on where I hear the click in the tracking and then I go to Spotify and check it after and I hear the click on the actual release. And I'm like, it doesn't make me feel good.
Hands, you said I would care.
Even the end of
you said.
Even at the end of said, where it sounds like there's a little bit of a warble there from any pitch correction, that can happen when singers are just moving around too. We're so sensitive to it now that we think everything is tuning.
You said I would carry less, but the heavy mess wasn't in my head. I never leave the night alone.
Just get rid of some of these gaps in here.
It's always such a silent home.
Yeah, we can just get this too. Do we need to do this? No, but just it makes me feel better when I'm messing around with some of this stuff, just to tidy this up in case there's other clicks and pops or breaths that are coming through that we don't necessarily need. It's all the stuff when the band or the artist is with you and they're just like, we're paying for all this. Yeah, that's why project rates and don't attend.
Freedom can be tricky when you haven't got the seed. True.
It's pretty clean. Pretty clean.
True enough.
See, even that too, with tuning, that way he's saying true and dropping down, people can do that.
True enough.
But I hear the tuning going in, scooping up on the note on true.
True enough. When the world calls your bluff, all the things you do find their way back to you, and there's nothing you can do. It's fine.
And the chorus again.
Me, all that life can be, but I lose, but
there's a little something in there. One of those noises. See if we can. Yep.
but I
Can probably just get rid of all that. Someone just freaked out at home. Get rid of the emotion.
but I lose my.
The emotion can go.
But I lose my. But I lose my. But I lose my head if I leave with empty hands.
Click there. If it's the same spot as last time, excuse me, they could be because they flew it or they copied and pasted it. Put this back at 5. I think they did copy paste it.
Hands you said I would carry less, but the heavy mess was in my head.
If they tucked an edit in there.
In my head, in my head, in my head, but the heavy mess was in my head.
Pretty good performance. Pretty good performance. Patterson's saying, what happened to dubstep? I feel like the era changed. Patterson's saying, I thought you wanted to record some death metal. I don't know where you got that from. Worked on a lot of metal, a lot of kids' music. It seems to be a lot of that back and forth these days. It's fun even if it's in the same day. But again, with the Cambridge Music Technology site, like there's just things that, like a lot of mixers for sure, like you kind of, I don't want to say get pigeonholed, like you just usually work on the same genres over and over again. And, you know, when you want to mess around with some other genres, it's a fantastic site for that. Because I heard this and it's like, I want to mess around with that. Patterson, let's hear some Evans. Well, there's Spotify. You can go on Spotify and you can listen to some EB, Patterson. Still very proud of those first 2 records. It was fun times. Hard to believe 2005. That's another thing that's weird. Like it's in a couple more years, it will have been 20 years ago. I don't know if that makes you feel old or less old. The idea of 20 years going by. I'm just cleaning up some of the gaps between some of the background vocals here. I don't think we need the breaths that are in there. I would normally solo and listen through these, but I'm assuming it's good because the lead vocal's pretty good. So that's all kind of cleaned up. So he got rid of a few things here. And we don't need to do any Or I'm not going to say we don't need to do any, but where we're at with the vocals right now, I think that's looking pretty good. I'm going to look at our guitars here. I'm going to put our groups back on. So I think we can tighten that up a little bit too, just with these. Again, you do not need to do this. This is me being me, as far as how I like to just kind of see my tracks here. But this stuff's really clean, but I'm in such, we are creatures of habit. And I'm so used to really going through here and listening. Okay, so that kind of stuff, we can get rid of that. And so that looks pretty good. Sometimes too, with a whole bunch of these things, you can just batch fade everything and it'll probably be fine. Electric piano. We'll listen to these here. Oh, we grabbed everything here. Just cleared everything off the shelf. I love that sound. That texture. It's the more you know sound. Or the shoulda known sound. Or some shows that's a you messed up and it just auto saved behind you in life. Someone at home right now is freaking out. They're just like, you don't need to do this. There's nothing there. And I'm like, I know, but there's a lot of ups and downs in the music industry. So anytime you can have a little bit of moment of up, and this makes me feel good, you got to go for it. You got to take it. And the music in the background is very fitting for the message I'm trying to get across right now. Patterson's saying a bunch of he's confused. Okay. Daniel's saying, I want to feel old. I went to Sepultura yesterday. First time I saw them was in 1993. Oh, wow. I don't even know who's, like, when I think of that, I think of Roots. But how was that? How was that? And was that your first concert coming back? Because that's a trying to think of the word. That's a rough rodeo if you want to get back on the ball. Sepultura. I can never remember how to pronounce his name properly. I'll butcher it. Max Cavalera. I have a very short story about him from years ago, and it's not entirely entertaining, but it's one of those things where it's like, because I did listen to Sepultura and I love the Roots record and Soulfly. I was more into Soulfly, and yeah, it was in 2017. We were in Atlanta, and my band was playing in one room. We're at the Masquerade. They have 3 venues in there, and my band was playing in one of the rooms, and Soulfly was playing one of the other rooms. And the bass player of my band was like, "Hey, we want to go see Soulfly?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, let's just walk, like, because we have passes." I'm like, "Let's just walk at like the front entrance, like we own the place, and just flash our laminates and try to get in, like Wayne's World, not Wayne's World style, if you're familiar with that." But it was very much just like, just walk at it like it's an automatic door. Like, yeah, like we're on Star Trek, and just go at it like it's gonna open. And we did, and we just like walked in, and we saw it, and I saw him up on stage, and I looked, and I was like, oh, because before when we were loading our stuff out, after we're done playing, there's this dude like standing by the bus, just having a smoke, and like I looked at him and I just kind of nodded because I thought maybe he's like one of the crew or something like that. There's just kind of hanging out. And then when we went and saw Soulfly, like he's up on stage, I was like, oh, that's Max. Oh, because I didn't really know what he looked like. But I was like, oh, that's the guy. I'm like, okay, well, the more you know. Wait, 1 second. The more you know. Again, it's not the best story, but it was one of those little moments where you're just like, oh, that's what today is. All the drums down here, I'm probably just going to leave those. Or what I could do, because they're in pretty good, not say pretty, they are in time. I can just bring those right over to where they actually start. Or just at least bring them to the beginning of the bar. I think that's probably a good idea. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's do that. Do you need to do this? No. Do I like to do this? Yeah. Some of the stuff in here, see there's a little bit of a gap there. It's not necessary. What we can do actually is just hit Command H and we'll heal that region. The world needs a lot of that right now, apparently. And we'll just tighten that up. Those are the swells that are there. They look pretty swell. One of the things too about kind of going through this process of kind of, you know, cleaning up the tracks and tidying things is a little bit of mental, you know, get yourself prepped as well mentally to actually dig into a mix when everything just looks all nice and orderly. That looks pretty good. Jill's saying, it was killer. No, I've been to a few shows already this year. The crowd was a lot of really friendly Brazilians just going nuts, ridiculously heavy. I bet it was very friendly and very ridiculous. That's awesome. It's good to see shows happening again. Just everyone, you know, be safe. But it's knowing how much music means to people, and how much live music means to people, but also how much live music like means to the artist as well, to be able to get out there and tour and stuff. Because it's one thing to make a record. It's one thing to actually be able to go out and play it. You know, if everyone to kind of have that release, to be able to go out to a live show. Fingers crossed the summer can just summer. We can get a lot of summer out of summer. That'd be fantastic, because it's been a rough couple of years. Okay, this is looking a lot cleaner to me. And I don't know if this matters to anybody else but me, but just looking at this right now, it's going to be very redundant. Looking at it visually, I can get an idea of where things are, and how much is actually there. Because when I look at, I'm going to see if I can pull this off. It'll be really slick if I can. When I look at this, I get overwhelmed because I feel like there's just lots of stuff. But when I have everything kind of cleaned up this way, I feel like there's significantly less. And a big part of you know, the creative process is reducing anxiety as much as you can. But this is one of the ways that I reduce anxiety when I look at stuff. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of tracks here, but like there's a big gap here. So like there's this kind of guitars at the end. There's only a couple vocals here. What's our time looking like? We're still good. Started an hour late today. But yeah, like this, all these synths, they don't come in till later. So we kind of need to get a handle on the drums and that one bass synth there and that one piano. Like there's not a lot happening in that first whole section there. So where I'm at right now, I want to start putting some markers in. And also I want to kind of hear what's happening over here. So I'm going to, yeah, I'm going to call this start over here. I'm going to start putting some markers in. I'm going to get rid of that other, that other one that was just kind of blocking in what I think is the first chorus. I'm just going to listen through. I'm going to put some markers in. I'm going to mute my microphone so I can try to clear my throat and drink water as well while this is going. So you're back. I'm back. One more thing I wanted to do. We don't need it, but I'm going to make another channel here. I'm going to make it mono aux. I'm going to call this click. I'm just going to put in, just so we have our count in, and we'll just use instrument, click 2. Oh, that's beautiful. That is just beautiful. Just so I had that for the count in, because 2, 3. All right, we're back.
In my head, where I can put up a fight, carry a thread, or I might get lost and not get back. Leaving a note for everyone back at home. I'm doing fine, I'm coming right back once I can burn my throne. Walk a mile, walk till you get to the eyes. Follow the curve, hope the walk is steep, that's what I need. I confessed, maybe I'm overdressed. Thinking slows me down. In a place I thought I would know my way around. It's fine by me, all that life can be. But I lose my head if I leave with empty hands. You said I would carry less, but the heaviness wasn't in my head. I never leave the night alone. It's always such a silent home.
I feel like the second verse should start there.
Left the hive when I was told how to fly. Freedom can be tricky when you haven't got the sea. True enough, when the world calls your bluff, all the things you do find their way back to you, and there's nothing you can do. It's fine by me, all that life can be, but I lose my head if I leave with empty hands. You said I would carry less, but the heaviness wasn't what's in my head. But the heaviness wasn't
We could be fading out already. I wouldn't have. I feel like some of that guitar solo's impact got missed because when we're fading out, we want to hear the rest of it, but it's fading away and we need to follow it because it is speaking the truth. There's some moments in that guitar solo. There's some great moments in that guitar solo. All right, so some of these markers, I want to listen to this again. Oops.
Leaving a note for everyone.
We'll just call this verse 1. I don't even know what to call that. Because there's like a verse 1 pre-chorus, and we'll call this verse 1B pre-chorus 1. It just needs to make sense to us. That's the beauty of markers. This stuff does not travel. It stays here. But one of the things that's good too, when you're dropping your markers in, put it in grid mode, because usually what it does is it snaps it to the nearest beat. So if you're on time or in time, like Rock Band styles in time, it'll put it where it needs to be. That way, if you're trying to loop a section, it'll actually come up. If you're in slip mode, it'll put it wherever you hit the button, and it will never really be right on the beat. So especially with electronic music or anything that is timed, it's a lot easier to just focus on a selection. So hour 46 in. I started an hour late today. I'm good till about 3:30. That's kind of where I'm at. So we have those dropped in just so we can get a feel for what's going on with the song. One thing I want to do as well are vocals. I'll go ahead, and what I'm going to do is go to the choruses.
Fine. Know my way around. It's fine.
We start there. That's where the pickup is. I'm going to put a break there. And
I never leave the night.
so I'm going to go to the beginning of that, and I'm going to grab all that stuff. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to use semicolon. We'll go down a track. I'm going to paste it, go back up, and I'm going to mute that. So I'm putting our chorus vocals on its own separate track because there's some other processing we might do to it.
Empty with empty hands. You say if I leave with you and there's nothing you can do, it's fine.
So same thing over here. We'll just find a spot where we can just go in there and grab that vocal. We can probably grab all of this out, copy, paste it down, and then mute it. This is just how I like to work. Instead of using automation and stuff, we can just put it on new tracks. We kind of have a lot of tracks to work with now. Don't staircase things, but we can fuss around with it a little bit like this. There we go. So now those are on separate tracks. So we can treat those differently because we might have some different effects, different delays, different reverbs, different choruses or chorusi. I don't know if that's plural for choruses. As far as effects go, we can mess around with that. That's looking good. Still sounding the same. I'm going to save, make a new save as here. So I've got a hotkey I made for this. Shift Command S. You can go into in System Preferences on your Mac and go into Keyboards and Text, and you can just type in, put Pro Tools in there, and you can just type in save as ... and then the keyboard command you want, because I save new versions of things all the time. Where I'm at, I'm not hearing a whole lot of, like, trying to think of a way to word it. Sometimes when we're EQing, and I'm a subtractive EQer, I'm constantly getting rid of things I don't like. I'm not hearing a lot of reparative EQ, which is usually my high and low pass filters. Like with electric guitars and stuff, you can usually need a high and low pass stuff. With some like real live recorded drums, there's a bunch of things we can do to clean up some of the mud. But when we're using virtual instruments and samples and drum machines and all those electronic elements, a lot of the processing, in my opinion, is kind of done. So you don't need to go in and start chopping up as much. So that's when that last 20% where I would be boosting, where we would be using additive EQ measures to kind of sweeten things, that's where I feel like there's a lot of heavy lifting can get done. Because yeah, like the drums sound like in the headphones, a lot of stuff sounds pretty good to me. So I'm going to mute our guitars, going to mute our vocals. I'm going to hop out of the headphones for maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes because I want to balance the drums a little bit, but I want to balance those on my NS10s, and I also want to add a compressor and some other stuff. And I don't really trust that in my headphones because I kind of need to know how the air is moving in the room. I'm constantly fighting with my headphone cable here. So yeah, I'll be right back. I'm just going to listen to outside of the headphones for a little bit. Be right back. I got to mute my microphone too, so I don't get the phase issues. I know how I just said I'm not really hearing a lot of reparative EQ stuff to do, and I instantly went for that ride cymbal and started carving at it. Yeah, anyways. One kind of not really a trick, but one thing I find helpful is I always want to, when I'm balancing things at the beginning, especially when it comes to drums, I want to be able to look at my meters. So instead of having to keep going and looking at my master fader over here, again, that's just our main output. I do have a set of analog meters in front of me, but I kind of want to know what the digital one's doing as well. If you go back to the edit window and click this fader here, it'll bring up this little fader window. Hit that red button, and then that will keep this up on top. And now when we're messing around with our levels, we can kind of look at our headroom that we're working with. Again, I try to keep my peaks around -10 or -6 dBFS just to give us headroom to work with. But yeah, now this little quick trick there just to keep this fader up, because I don't know how to do it on the mix window. I try to keep to a lot of the stock Pro Tools plugins, but I've been liking Decapitator. There's a little bit of saturation, distortion, but I'm using it here for saturation. To get the weight of that kick drum, we could EQ it. We could use a pull tech and add a little bit bottom end. But also with this Decapitator here, when we're adding the saturation to it, we can adjust the overall EQ balance using the dark or bright side of this tone knob here. We can also use a high and low pass filters using the low cut and the high cut as well. So pretty flexible to get a little bit more attitude or a little bit more spice out of whatever we're working with here. So that's why I pulled this one up. Reminder too, because we're having that fade out, my mix bus, my main mix bus processing, I'm putting that on this aux, and then that's getting fed to this main output. So normally all this stuff would be over here, but it's putting it over here. So when we do our fade out, we're not affecting our compressors or saturation, anything over here. We can just do our fade just on that master output there. And again, with the compressor, I'm putting on the main mix bus over here. We're just kind of tapping that a little bit. I kind of just use it as kind of a speed check for everything. So it's not doing that much glue as far as things are going. But once we get the rest of the instrumentation in, that's where we can start to hear some of the glue that might be coming from that mix bus compressor that's there. 4-1.